Alright, today we're going to install Oracle Linux 9 on Oracle VirtualBox 6.1 VM. Why Oracle Linux? Oracle Linux, it is a enterprise Linux distribution and it's free. Oracle Linux is very popular in Oracle world and in other places we use like CentOS, Ubuntu, Red Hat Linux, either free or commercial. So due to the fact CentOS is kind of no longer available, CentOS 8, so people try to find a substitute. So we're going to pick up Oracle Linux. And also Oracle Linux just released version 9, similar like Red Hat version 9. So we can use Oracle's VirtualBox as a VM platform and install the operating system. So in this demo, the Oracle Linux 9, the image is already downloaded. So let me go to my download folder. Here's the Oracle Linux version 9. I also have Red Hat Linux 9, but the install is very similar. So let's just use Oracle. If you want to use Red Hat, you can use Red Hat as well. Just your personal choice, okay? But it turns out they are very similar. There's really minimum difference, okay? Also, I have VirtualBox installed on the laptop, so I'm going to go ahead to create the VM and the install operating system. Okay, let's get started. So open the Oracle VirtualBox and click on New. So we're going to create a new operating system. New VM should be, VirtualBox, okay, a virtual machine. So I'm going to name it as 09, Oracle 9, Linux 9. So this is the location. So I'm going to choose Linux. Default is Oracle Linux 64-bit, okay? So I'm going to go to next. So let's give it some more memory because after the install, you probably can reduce if you don't have much memory, okay? So in this box, I have 16. I allocate a quarter. So go to next. Then create a disk. We're going to take the default VDI disk image and go to next. We'll use dynamic allocated, next. Okay. So this is the default location. I think I'm going to bump up some disk space. Let's give it 100 gig, okay? 86, close. And go to create. All right. So the VirtualBox is created. And now we're going to install the operating system into this VirtualBox. Prior to that, we need to mount the CD, okay? So mount the optical CD, choose a disk file, so our Linux, okay? So we can click OK. But before we install, we're going to make some change to the system setting, okay? Let's go to System. So we don't want a floppy, so we probably want a USB tablet for the pointing device for easy maneuver. Processors, let's give it a few more. We can reduce it after we're done the installation. Display is fine, storage is fine, audio is fine. Network, default is NAT, so I'm going to use bridge network. So in case we want easy communicate from your host machine to your guest machine, okay? That means your laptop to this machine. Also for the internet access. So rest of is fine. If you're going to create a shadow folder, you can, but I'm just click OK now. All right. So let's go to start. So that means you start the power on the VirtualBox, and so it's going to do the installation. There's two options. So I'm going to pick up the first one. It's install Oracle Linux 900. Then click return so to get started the installation. While the installation in progress, and so we can do some basic internet search. For example, let's do a CentOS end of life. So basically, if you search, see, CentOS 8 was end of life last year. Okay, so people, this is why people now and find a replacement. Okay, so if you search for CentOS replacement, and you can see the internet some replacement. Okay, so let's see. This is people's opinion. So one of them is called Rocky Linux. So that is can be a substitute, but it's relatively new. Ubuntu is also good substitute, but Ubuntu is not in the Red Hat family. Okay, so that is if we look at the Red Hat family, like Rocky Linux, Oracle Linux, they are the Red Hat Linux. Another option it is OpenSUSE. That is another family. So Ubuntu Debian is a one family. I'm not sure the Fedora is OpenSUSE, but anyway, so because we want something more closer to Red Hat in this demo, so we're going to just choose or either Rocky Linux or Oracle Linux. Okay, let's see. All right, now it is the page. It's English, so I'm going to just choose the English. Okay. And now the page, we're going to do some installation. You're going to choose something. Okay, so let's from on the left. On the left, you need a root password. So you should give a good, healthy password if in the real world. But in this demo, we just use a simple password. Also, you see here, I'm gonna allow root SSH login with password. That means I can remote log on to this server. So we click down twice because my password is simple in this case. So now the software selection, by default, is a service GUI. So I don't need this GUI because in the real world, you're gonna deal with the server. So I'm gonna just pick up the server. Okay. I don't pick up. You can pick up some additional software, but I just leave it the bare minimum, like the basic. Okay, so basic server, whatever come from the default. So for the network, so this is the default IP address by the dynamic IP. Okay, we're going to change it to a static IP. Okay, so I'm going to name this host as 09. So I'm going to configure this from from dynamic IP DHCP to static IP. Okay, so I'm going to configure IP4 setting. So I'm going to add the static address. Okay, here is going to DHCP, change it to menu. So when we add, so we can add the IP address. So we pick up IP address 192.168.1, so we just pick one, okay? So I just pick whatever the same as dynamic. You can choose any IP. In the real world, this IP is going to be assigned from network, the DNS from the DNS service, okay? So whatever IP being given. So network mask, we're going to use 255.0, okay? Gateway, it's going to be 92.168.1.1. So we're going to use a DNS server. So the DNS server we're going to use same one, okay, as the gateway. So that means with your host IP address, okay. All right, I'm going to save this this one, and it says connected. This is the IP address. So let's just do a disconnect and reconnect, okay? So it's still connected. So at this moment, I think if you go to the CMD window, you can pin this address, okay? Let's do a pin. 192.168.1.159. Yeah, it is pinnable. Okay, so now we're gonna go ahead to the click done. So let's see what else we need to do. All right, the things is install destination. I'm gonna click this one, okay? So you can take a default, like you can let the system decide this 64 gig, okay? So in this demo, I'm gonna use a customer because I try to make it more closer to the real world, okay? I'm gonna use custom. And then click done. So I'm gonna use the basic standard partition, and then I'm gonna do a minimum customization. Okay, you see here, available space 96, total space 96. Okay, so I'm gonna click add to create the mount point. By default, it have those mount point slash boot slash home var 0. So we're going to do the same thing. We put most like system related under the slash. Okay, so let's give it I'll give it like 30 gig. Okay, so I'm gonna add this mount point. It's 30 gig. It's under slash root standard file system XSF. I think just take this one, it's fine. Or you can want to extend for, okay. I just take this one, okay. And so now, Mac, no, this is not Mac. We're gonna go to 30 gig, okay. Let's change it to GIB, okay. So it's gonna be 30 gig. So I'm gonna plus another one. I'm going to create a mount point called DB, okay? So it's going to be, my database is going to be go to next separate mount point. So I'm going to add, once again, it's going to be 66. I'm going to give rest of them to the database, okay? All right, so let's see, click down. All right, so this is the partition. They have, this is for DB, this is the root file system, okay? So we're gonna see accept. I'm gonna accept this change change. Okay, so it's ready. So let's go ahead to do a begin installation. And it can take like a few 10 minutes. So at this point, I'm just going to pause the video and return when it is finished. Okay. All right, let's continue. So the install is complete, so we can do a reboot. So the system is going to reboot. Once the reboot is complete, we will get a login screen. Then we can log on. So while waiting, I'm going to open a command window and we'll connect the remote server. Although it is a VirtualBox on your local desktop, right? So, but we can treat it, use the term remote because in the real world, we always connect a server somewhere, For, for example, in the data center, it's either a physical machine, virtual machine, or somewhere in the cloud. Okay, so I'm gonna log on root and then into the password. All right, so I'm in the system. Let's see the IP config. It's correct. And the DF, so you can see we're going to have two mount point. One is a slash, another is a slash DB. So if you do a ls to see this, the root file system, you see the standard is there. Like let me see, user root sys var dev etc and opt those. Okay, this db it is separate mount point. Okay, so since I'm not going to decide to install the guest edition, so I'm gonna just minimize this. So I'm gonna like typically when we work on the environment, we're gonna do the remote logging. So in this case, I'm gonna just do the use SSH to do a test connection. We can use PuTTY or PuTTY, any SSH client to do the connection. Okay, so I'm gonna use the IP address 1.159. Okay. So this is the first time, so we accept it. So we're gonna have the same thing, right? So this is the system is ready for us to do the installation. Like we're gonna install in the future use this to install the database, Oracle, DB2, etc., MySQL, MongoDB. The good thing is this Linux, Oracle Linux, is very similar to Red Hat Linux. So basically, and the majority command is like even the system command is the same. Okay, so let's confirm. So it's going to be, so it's OS release. It's version 9.0. It's Oracle Linux. Let's see, it also should have another one. It's a Red Hat release. So it's also, and if we do the uname, so you will see the kernel information. So the kernel information, it's called a UEK in Oracle's term, enterprise unbreakable enterprise kernel. Okay, and that is the kernel developed by Oracle. You can, I think, use Red Hat compatible kernel as well. So that is another thing. But we're gonna stick with the default, and we're gonna use this um, Oracle Linux for the future. All right, I'm gonna stop here.